I'm I'm holding up the book entitled Malcolm X, Black Liberation and the Struggle for Workers' Power, put out by uh, Pathfinder Press. This book gives tells you the story of the GIs united against the war in Vietnam. There's a small portion of the book. Uh, it tells you about the fight that went on in the army at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, in 1969. Also, just reading the militant for the first half of 1969, you will find the story of the GIs that fought against the war in Vietnam and fought against racism as it manifests itself throughout the armed forces. Uh, the the question of the role that Malcolm X played in this development is important. It was the beginning of the movement of black and Puerto Rican soldiers who sat around after work, after the day's duty were done, listening to tapes of Malcolm X. The Ballad of the Bullet, it talks to young people, other indication of his presentation in the and the anger that was that was manifested by black people and Puerto Rican soldier getting together to discuss what to do to advance the idea of uh, uh, standing in unity against racist attacks that was going on. Also, the first defense effort on the part of the soldiers uh, then was to try to organize a campaign to demand uh, that the authorities allow a place to hold a mass meeting on the base to discuss the legal and moral question of the war in Vietnam. We conducted a petition drive in that regards. Uh, we had to organize in such a way as to make it difficult for the rulers, for the brass, the authorities, to pit the soldiers against each other, to pit the white Caucasian soldiers against the black and Puerto Ricans. Uh, because we had people who were active in the movement before uh, being drafted into the armed forces, uh, as well as the veterans who had been to Vietnam and whatnot, uh, uh, who were of all colors, or black, white, Puerto Rican. Uh, we realized that not only were black and Puerto Rican against the war, it was opposed to racist uh, practices within the armed forces, but so were white soldiers. And recognizing that reality, we opened up the meetings to uh, all soldiers, black, white, whatever, to meet together to discuss the war and then to launch campaigns to end the, uh, uh, for example, to defend the soldiers. 43 of them, they were called the Fort Hood 43 from Fort Hood, Texas. They were black soldiers who opposed being deployed to Chicago to crush the people who were protesting around the Democratic Party convention uh, that year. You have heard about the trial of the Chicago Eight that came out of that the effort. Well, the first campaign of the GIs United Against the War in Vietnam was to defend those soldiers who were victimized for going, not willing to go to Chicago to oppose the uh, the anti-war forces who was protesting at the Democratic Party convention at that time. Also, a big effort was to organize to demand that the charges were brought against Tommy Whitfin, a leader of the GIs United, who was uh, victimized for distributing petitions to the whole mass meeting to discuss the war. Uh, we had just won his case. The charges were dropped against him, and we was celebrating that victory at a meeting on March 20th outside of the the barracks. A big rally of 150, 200 soldiers popped up on the spur of the moment. Were organized, and we became victims of the cops of the brass, the military brass, uh, thought to crush the movement by arresting seven, actually eight of us. We became known as the Fort Jackson 8 cases. Actually, it was Fort Jackson 9. One turned out to be an agent discovered pretty early. So it was the case was reduced down to Fort Jackson 8. So we finally won the case. It was the charges were dropped against us, all kinds of undemocratic charges, trumped up charges, and so on. Um, what we saw in this development was the power of rank and file soldiers who were against the Vietnam War, and the beauty of it, the beauty of what was done there was to involve soldiers who was black, white, and Puerto Rican together, and unifying in that way made it difficult for the brass, for the army authorities to prosecute their campaign uh, of intimidation and of conflict between the forces, and we were able to prevail because of that. Now, let me just say this about the anti-war movement in the army. Uh, a big description of the power of the anti-war movement within the army uh, can be read about again in Pathfinder book called Out Now. It gives you a good grasp to the scope of the anti-war movement within the army, and the whole entire anti-war movement. The a place where you can find more about uh, GIs United Against the War in Vietnam, and also other uh, uh, anti-war organizations within the armed forces, is in a movie called Sir No Sir, produced by Netflix. It's not easy to find now, but you can try to find it. And there is a very small portion of the movie devoted to the Fort Jackson Eight, uh, mainly just a photograph of a picture that appeared on one of the GI newspaper at the time, called Vietnam GI. But the whole the scope of the general movement against the Vietnam War involving U.S. military personnel were gigantic and powerful, and it played a role with the civilian anti-war movement in forcing the United States to seek to end its involvement in the murderous war in Vietnam. Now, of course, it would not have succeeded without the role of the Vietnamese themselves, their tenacity, their uh, refusal to be submissive, their uh, little people uh, uh, with rice bowls and wearing what was called pajamas, as Malcolm referred to them, in this way, uh, being able to hold at bay the United States, the most powerful military force on earth at the time. Nevertheless, these very people who was, disparaging the this made the imperialists would make disparaging remarks about them. Nevertheless, were able to prevail, and thanks to their tenacity and uh, uh, their will to continue the struggle to defend their right to control their own country, their own policies, their own destiny, that they were able to succeed in bringing about the end to the war, to the advantage of the Vietnamese people. And the black struggle, the intersection of the black struggle with that war and the role of black soldiers, not only in regard to the Fort Jackson case, but with regard to many other incidents, many other manifestations of black awareness, in the effort to oppose the war in Vietnam. Let me just say a few words about the general uh, subject. The the question of being able to uh, rally the public of not only of black people but of Puerto Ricans, Latinos, uh, uh, white people or Caucasians, other ethnic people who have all become victims of police brutality and killing throughout the country. They kill roughly 1,000 or so people, working people. They don't kill billionaires or millionaires. They kill working people. Uh, 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 every year, about 1,000. Uh, uh, the vast majority of those are Caucasian. A higher percentage, proportionally speaking, are black, and that's true throughout the country. Uh, it's important, and another thing, it is today the reality that the majority of people of all ethnic uh, groups oppose the brutality that is being meted out largely against black people and other Latinos. This has been reflected in the scope of the movement to end cop brutality, cop killings that have swept the country over the last year or so, and it continues to be a force for good, a force that can, if mobilized, if crystallized, if we are dead set against any idea of premature violence attacks from our movement, if we are pledged to organize peaceful legal protests against the killer cops, to demand that they be held accountable, that they be jailed, that they be tried, that they be fired. With that as our watchword, we can continue to make gains. We have made some gains. We have succeeded in getting policemen tried. We have getting succeeded in getting police officers arrested and jailed. Not enough. We have the case of Breonna Taylor, where not one of them have been subject to the law, or not one have been subject to the law in Colorado with Elijah McClain and elsewhere. Uh, uh, we need to redouble the effort to to continue to demand that the 14th Amendment be applied, which means that the federal government is ultimately responsible for protecting the rights of people who have been victimized. The federal government ultimately is responsible for doing the job that the local authorities have failed to do, and we should demand that the case is not closed, and that all cases that involving police killing be open, and that justice be served. In the case of Malcolm X, his the revelation of police conniving in carrying out his assassination. The case of brother uh, brother the brothers from Chicago who was murdered by the cops, Hampton, uh, and Mark Clark and the others, and all such cases as well should be reopened, and justice should be demanded and served by uh, the power that be. Now, just to conclude, um, we want to have other uh, discussion and other events, maybe late March or sometime like that. It'll be a year since the killing of Breonna Taylor. Uh, it's also the year. Uh, it's an anniversary of the Grenadian Revolution, which occurred March 13th as well. Uh, and the example that that was shown by the leaders of the revolution there is important, in that they did what we will ultimately have to do. They organized an insurrection, which overthrew the government, who had been on the order to murder the leaders, uh, what became the leadership of the revolution. Just as they had murdered the father of uh, the father of one of the leaders of the revolution years ago. So in a way, the revolutionary got hold of the idea, the plan, and decided to end the system that brought about police terror and police murder. So they, in a way, so bringing that example to the fore as to what can happen when we do the right things, uh, will be important to bring out. So this will be one of the things that will be discussed at the next meeting of the coalition, which will probably be on Saturday night, 8 o'clock, so Eastern time. You could, we will be able to get in touch with you by email. Uh, Leave your information with us. We have the uh, from the discussion and the registration and other means, get word out to you about the future plans. Thank you.